ungodly things to her. And now they've chosen you.
What do you mean? I need it.
This is a role you were born to play. Baby's here to stay.
Movie opens in New York City in 1965, where a dancer named Terry is preparing for her performance. As the group performance begins, everything is going smoothly. However, when Terry attempts a jump, she unfortunately twists her ankle upon landing and collapses, screaming in pain. Next, we see Terry limping as she returns home, where she overhears Ness arguing with Annie, saying that Terry should start working and she should not cover up for her. Realizing Terry is behind her, Ness quickly leaves, mentioning she has a date. After Ness leaves, Terry assures Annie that she'll find something soon, to which Annie responds that she will. Over the next few days, Terry continues to audition, but due to her ankle injury, she's unable to dance properly and faces rejection at every audition. One day, while going through her bills, Terry comes across a pamphlet for a casting call. The next day, at her audition, Terry introduces herself, and one of the selectors mentions she's the girl who fell. She shares that she has 6 years of formal training at Kearney Dance Academy in Hazard, and when asked about Hazard, she confirms her family runs a slaughterhouse there. Sensing their disinterest, Terry assures them that what happened won't happen again. When asked what move it was, she explains it was a shite, and her toe came down too early after hitting the split. Leo asks Terry to show what she can do, and after a brief hesitation, she agrees. Nervously, she performs the move successfully, but he asks her to do it again. Desperate, Terry complies, repeating it, though the pain becomes more visible with each attempt. However, he keeps pushing her to repeat it until her ankle twists again. Despite the pain, Terry insists she can keep going, but they just say they'll call her. Terry points out that she hasn't even sung yet, but they don't respond. At that moment, Alan asks Terry what kind of animals her family processes in Hazard. She replies that they mostly handle pigs, prompting Alan to tell her to get down on her hands, sniff around in the mud, roll in the dirt, and wiggle her tail. Terry insists she'll do anything for another chance but won't humiliate herself, to which Alan smirks and replies, "Good for her," before walking out. Next, we see Terry taking some pills, and Annie warns her to take it easy, saying that being on stage isn't worth it. Terry firmly replies, "Of course it is," and then asks how she did, to which Annie tells her that they called her in for a callback. Terry follows Alan to the Brampton apartment building and tells the receptionist she's there for Alan. The receptionist asks, "Is Alan expecting her?" And she hesitantly says yes. He then suggests calling a cab for her, but she insists she's fine. Just then, she hears a strange noise coming from behind the elevator door, and when she asks, "What was that?" the receptionist responds, "What was what?" Uneasy, Terry watches him for a moment before leaving the building, where she bumps into an older couple, Minnie and Roman Castevet, and suddenly vomits. The next morning, Terry wakes up in an unfamiliar home, confused and disoriented. She overhears voices outside the room, and when she steps out, she finds the couple from the night before, Minnie and Roman Castevet. Minnie immediately tells Terry to sit down, remarking that she looks terrible, and asks Roman to make her a Bloody Mary. She then asks for her name and then introduces herself and her husband Roman. Minnie invites Terry to sit and eat with them, but Terry politely declines, explaining that she doesn't eat meat. When Minnie asks why, Terry shares that she grew up on a pig farm, making it difficult to enjoy the smell of bacon after seeing how it's made. Apologizing for being a bit hazy about the previous night, Terry listens as Roman explains they found her on the sidewalk, and she mentioned being a friend of Alan's. Terry clarifies that she's not so much a friend as a prospective employee for his Broadway show. She then admits she was in rough shape last night, adding that not many people would help a stranger as they did, to which Minnie replies with a smile, saying, "What's the point of a guest room without a guest to put in it?" Later, Minnie tells Terry that she knew right away she was a performer. Terry asks, "Was it the leotard that gave her away?" To which Minnie says it's more about an interesting inner quality she noticed. Minnie then asks what happened to her leg, and Terry explains that she had an accident 4 months ago. Offering advice, Minnie says, "It's not our falls that define us. It's what we do afterward." They take Terry to an apartment, and Roman explains that they bought the place as an investment. Terry remarks that the apartment is nice, and Minnie surprises her by offering the place to her. Grateful, Terry says she appreciates the offer, but could never afford the rent for a place like this. To which Roman then tells her they wouldn't be charging her, and Minnie adds that since they don't have kids, they've got a lot of money and no one to spend it on. Roman tells her that the previous tenant was a young woman fleeing an abusive boyfriend, and they helped her regain her confidence. He reassures Terry that they aren't offering it forever, just until she gets back on her feet, and Minnie adds that who knows, she might even run into Alan one of these days. Later, Annie expresses concern, reminding Terry that she doesn't know these people, to which Terry says they're just lonely old folks looking for someone to rescue, and she is happy to play the damsel in distress if it means living at the Bramford. She adds that she can't keep relying on her forever, and moving into her own place feels like the first step forward, and this is meant to be. Terry shifts to her new apartment and notices a drawer isn't closing properly while putting her things, and as she pulls the drawer out to fix it, she discovers a shoe with the label Joan Siebelski. Just then, someone knocks on the door, and Terry finds Minnie standing there. Minnie enters the apartment, notices the shoe, and asks about it, to which Terry explains it likely belonged to her old tenant Joan. Minnie mentions Joan skipped out like Cinderella at midnight, calling it a shame since she was a gifted young woman, before tossing the shoe in the bin. Terry retrieves it, and Minnie asks if she's free for drinks at 9, and when Terry asks what she should bring, Minnie replies, "It won't be at their place." Terry visits Alan's house, where he warmly welcomes her. He tells her that Roman and Minnie have sent their apologies, as they double-booked for the evening. He adds that if she would prefer to reschedule, he completely understands. Terry, however, responds that this is perfect. Terry then asks Alan how hard Minnie had to twist his arm to get her up there, to which he replies that it was actually Roman, adding, "You don't say no to a patron of the arts, especially one with such deep pockets." However, he admits that's not the real reason he agreed. Terry asks why he agreed, to which Alan explains that he was intrigued because the last time they met, she was the girl who fell, and now she lives on the floor below. He hands her a drink, and Terry, with a knowing smile, says it's not our falls that define us, but what we do afterward. He then shows her a seminal work by Adrian Marcato, considered one of the first Broadway musicals, explaining that they will be doing a contemporary take on it. He tells her that this revival is a tribute to Marcato's legacy and that there has been a considerable amount of financial and emotional investment, which is why he knows she understands that he needs the best. Terry asks if he would be willing to let her audition again, to which he asks her why she dances. Terry replies that dancing is her joy, but he presses, wanting to know what truly fuels her. With a deep breath, Terry reveals that her mother died when she was young in an accident on the farm, and when her dad fell apart, dancing became her escape. After some time, Terry begins to feel dizzy, and her attempts to get up fail, prompting Alan to approach her, remarking that she really can't handle her liquor, and helping her to her feet. As Terry tries to make her way to the door, Alan plays some music, and suddenly dancers appear behind her, tearing her dress to reveal another dress underneath. She attempts to move forward, but Alan pulls her into a dance and then guides her into a room. When she steps inside, she finds Roman and Minnie sitting there, and then she notices a stage where Alan is already present. Descending the stairs, she starts dancing with him, and then more dancers appear, lifting her and passing her among themselves, before placing her on a table and covering her with a black cloth as they dance around her. Gradually, they all move back, and Terry sees Alan approaching her. The lights suddenly go out, and as she turns her head, she is startled to see a demon sitting nearby. Fear grips her as the black cloth starts to slip away from her, and the demon crawls toward her feet, beginning to climb up her body. Terrified, she screams, and suddenly wakes up to find herself in Alan's room. Alan comes there with a coffee for her, and as he hands her a cup, he tells her that he had a wonderful time last night. Terry admits she doesn't remember much, to which Alan gets up and says that last night was a one-off, encouraging her to eat up because she has a big day ahead. Curious, she asks what today is, and he tells her excitedly that she made the chorus and she's officially in. Next, we see Terry at practice, where Leo abruptly stops them, saying that they are being very sloppy and that they are supposed to embody Amazon warriors. He then leaves, giving them a 5-minute break. During this time, Terry notices a bruise on her arm, and a girl named Vera approaches her, commenting that she's dragging her steps. Terry explains that she's a couple of days behind the rest, but is determined to catch up. Vera moves closer and says, if she is going to sleep her way into the show, at least have the talent to back it up. Later, in the restroom, Terry notices several other bruise marks on her body as well. When Terry returns to her apartment, Minnie comes out of her unit and invites her over. Terry replies that it's been a long day, but soon realizes that Minnie has already gone inside. Terry enters her unit, where Minnie introduces her to Lily Gardenia, who lives next door. Terry says it's nice to meet her, and Minnie encourages her to sit down, informing her that Lily was the first female judge in New York State. She says she is tired of watching her limp around like a cripple, so she told Lily about her little problem and suggests she let Lily take a look at her foot. Terry hesitantly shows her foot to Lily, who examines it and rubs an ointment on the injury, saying twice a day should do the trick, and Minnie adds that soon she will be flying in no time. Next, we see the elevator door open, and when Terry approaches to check, the elevator suddenly descends from above. The scene shifts, and we see Terry sleeping with a demonic figure standing near her bed. She feels a sensation in her stomach and looks at the demon, only to jolt awake, trembling with fear. She gets out of bed, surprised to realize that there's no pain in her ankle at all. She flexes it carefully, testing it, and thinks it must be due to Lily's ointment. We then see Terry at practice, moving with grace and precision, and Leo claps for her, saying she has been doing her homework. During their break, Alan arrives with Dylan, who hands out the dancers' first paychecks. Next, we see Terry and Annie at a Christmas party, where Minnie approaches them, and Annie thanks her for letting her tag along. But Minnie tells Terry that she wants to introduce her to some friends. She introduces them to Laura and Dan, as well as Dr. Saperstein, who mentions that if she ever needs an obstetrician, she should let him know, to which Annie replies that she doesn't think that will be happening anytime soon. After this, she excuses herself and starts looking for Annie. As she moves a little further, she spots some unfamiliar people in a room, and the door to that room shuts. She turns and walks to the other side, where she overhears Lily talking to Minnie about not doing it again, to which Minnie threatens her, saying she knows what will happen if she does. Just then, their attention shifts to Terry, and Lily leaves the kitchen with a disappointed expression on her face. Roman then arrives with a present for Terry, and when she opens it, she is left speechless at the sight of a beautiful overcoat. Minnie encourages her to try it on, and as she puts it on, Minnie tells her to check the right pocket. Terry finds a necklace inside, and Roman explains that it's over 300 years old, with the green part made from tannis root for good luck. Noticing Terry's sadness, Minnie comments that she's acting like it's the first time anyone has given her a gift, to which Terry replies that she feels very lucky. Later, while Terry is with Annie in her apartment, she wears the overcoat. However, when she looks in the mirror, she is horrified to see demonic hands gripping her tummy. But when Annie asks what's wrong, Terry brushes it off, saying there was just something on her. The next day, Terry experiences a strange sensation in her tummy and rushes to the restroom to vomit. Later, she visits Dr. Saperstein and discovers that she is pregnant. She shares the news with Annie, who asks if she plans to tell Alan. Terry replies that she won't, as he would kick her out of the show. Annie tells her to forget about the show for a moment and asks what she truly wants, to which Terry responds that it would mean the end of everything she has been working toward. Annie mentions that her cousin had an abortion last year and offers to ask her if she is sure about her decision. Vera arrives, mentioning she heard bleach works wonders, and when Annie reminds her it was a private conversation, Vera sarcastically suggests getting someone to push her down the stairs. Furious, Terry pushes Vera, who, shocked, calls her a real loon before storming out. That evening, while Terry is in the laundry, she spots a bottle of bleach and starts contemplating drinking it, but suddenly, she feels a severe pain in her stomach, and the door of the washing machine swings open on its own. Confused, she approaches the machine and closes the door, but the machine unexpectedly turns on by itself. Terry feels a wave of fear wash over her as she turns around and sees a child inside the machine, and then she gets startled by the reflection of a demon, but when she looks behind her, there's no one there. The next day, when Terry enters the green room, she encounters Vera, and as Terry sits down, she realizes that Vera has put ketchup and egg on her seat. Vera smugly comments that it looks like she made her problem go away, to which Terry responds, yes, if only her mother had the same foresight. Alan then arrives and tells Vera that he supposes she thinks it's funny to damage company property, and instructs her to help Terry clean up the mess. As Vera goes to clean up, a man arrives and tells everyone to head to the stage. Once the others leave, Terry tells Alan she can handle Vera herself, to which Alan responds that he knows she can but suggests she has enough to worry about. He then sits down to help clean her up, and when Terry asks, "You know?" he replies, "Good news travels fast." She questions if he thinks this is good news, and he clarifies it's unexpected, but not the end of the world. Terry insists it's the end of her career, but Alan reassures her, saying that one day, everyone will see what she is truly capable of, and people like Vera won't stand a chance. But until then, he needs her sharp onstage, and preferably yoke-free. That evening, Terry returns to her apartment, only to find the door open. Inside, Roman and Minnie are waiting, and Minnie remarks that she's already glowing. Terry guesses Dr. Sapirstein must have told them, and they must have informed Alan. Minnie confirms this, and Roman adds they know she's scared of being a single woman and want to help. Minnie insists they'll see Sapirstein together in the morning, but Terry says she hasn't decided whether to keep it. Minnie tries to reassure her, but Terry says she can't raise a child. When Minnie insists she'd make a great mother and has family support, Terry says they are not her family. Shocked, Minnie urges her to come with them, but Terry asks them to leave, to which Minnie insists they just want to show her something before leaving her alone. They bring Terry to their apartment, and Roman explains that they tried for years to have a baby. Terry asks why they're showing her this, and they reply that if there's truly no room in her life for the baby, they'll make room in theirs. Terry acknowledges it's a lot to take in, and says she needs some time, to which Minnie points out that she could either give the child up to a stranger or to them. Roman adds that by doing so, she would be giving them a great gift, and in return, they would give her anything she wants. Terry says all she wants is to work and be on stage, to which Minnie tells her to forget the chorus line, insisting she's wasted there and knows she wants her name in big, flashy lights on a marquee. The Pale Crook starring Terry Giannoffrio. Roman adds that showbiz is about relationships and encourages her to let them take care of things. Terry thinks for a moment and nods in agreement, prompting Minnie to say it's settled. That night, Terry dreams of being surrounded by members of a satanic cult, and when her eyes open, she feels someone is in her room, but when she gets up, she realizes no one is there. Terry gets out of bed to check her apartment and discovers a woman at the door, and when she turns on the light, she's startled to see Lily there. Terry says she must have wandered out of her apartment, but Lily insists she has to stop it, then apologizes before suddenly attacking Terry with scissors. Terry dodges the attacks and manages to lock herself in her apartment, but after a while, when she opens the door to check on Lily, she finds her gasping for help. The next day, when Roman and Minnie visit Terry's apartment, Roman informs her that Lily is in a coma and says she likely saved Lily's life last night, expressing how proud they are of her. Terry, still shaken, explains that Lily chased her around the apartment and that she's unsure how she even got in, to which Roman calmly suggests that she must have left the door unlocked. Later, Lily discovers a secret door in a closet that leads to another apartment. She inspects the space and enters a room where a radio is playing. Turning it off, she notices a book underneath, which is a letter written by Lily. Terry checks the book and is startled to find a picture of the demon she saw in her dreams. Just then, she hears the door open and quickly returns to her apartment with the book. Next, during practice, Leo tries to keep Vera in the lead for the performance, but suddenly her ankle twists, and she complains that something doesn't feel right. In the next moment, she falls to the floor, screaming as her body begins to stiffen. Later, Alan informs the team that Vera is in stable condition, but with opening night just days away, he and Leo have decided to replace her role with Terry. We then see Minnie trimming Terry's hair, insisting that if she's going to be the star of the show, she has to look the part. She asks to see the photo again, and comments that Vera has a face for short hair. Terry mentions that they say she might never walk again, and when Minnie asks if that's true, Terry replies that the timing just feels strange. Minnie expresses surprise, saying she thought she would be over the moon, to which Terry admits she is happy. But it's just that whatever she said to Alan worked like a charm. Minnie suggests maybe she shouldn't have bothered, and adds that she had everything she ever wanted handed to her on a silver platter. This is her big break, the role of a lifetime. In a moment of frustration, she accidentally cuts Terry's ear, and when Terry looks in the mirror and acknowledges Minnie's point, Minnie confidently states that she's always right. The next day, Terry stands outside Adkins Theater, watching her name displayed on the marquee. As the rehearsal show starts, she begins her performance but gets nervous when she spots Minnie in the audience. Leo yells at her to get her head on straight, and after a while, when the rehearsal ends, Terry realizes that Minnie is no longer there. Next, while in the green room, Terry suddenly experiences a sharp pain in her stomach and is shocked to see a bump on her tummy in one of the mirrors. She then notices movement inside her abdomen, but just moments later, she realizes her stomach is flat again. Later, Terry calls Dr. Sapirstein, reporting blinding pains, to which he reassures her that this is normal for expectant mothers in the first trimester. And when she mentions seeing things that aren't there, he explains it can happen, as no two pregnancies are alike. Worried, Terry insists something is wrong with her or the baby, to which he suggests an examination, and offers to have Minnie pack a bag for her. Terry refuses to tell Minnie and questions the need for a bag, to which he explains she might need to be admitted for perinatal hysteria. Terry protests that she isn't crazy, but he warns that precautions must be taken if she poses a danger to herself or the baby. Terry checks the book from Lily's room and finds a picture of the necklace Roman and Minnie gifted her, followed by a shocking image of a woman giving birth to Satan. Just then, there's a knock on the door, and when Terry peeks through the peephole, she sees Minnie outside. Minnie uses a spare key to open the door, but it gets stuck with the chain lock. And when Terry asks if she needs anything, Minnie mentions that she and Roman made too much Jiffy ground. Terry replies, she isn't hungry. And after a moment of silence, Minnie shuts the door. But when Terry peeks again, she sees Minnie smiling before she leaves. Terry investigates Joan's past and discovers that she mysteriously disappeared 6 months ago. While going through Joan's belongings, she finds a Bible with an underlined passage, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Suddenly, Terry's hand is burned by the rosemary chain, leaving a cross-shaped mark on her skin. Terry visits a church, but suddenly feels severe pain in her tummy, causing her to collapse. Desperate, she begins praying, admitting she's not the praying type. But just then, a nun startles her and asks if she's okay, to which Terry responds that she needs to know what's happening to her. The nun pulls Terry aside and warns her to stay away from the book, revealing that rumors have persisted for generations about a group of Satan worshippers who lived at the Bramford, and the book is their scripture. Terry then shares her suspicion that they did something to Joan, the previous tenant, to which the nun reveals Joan had come to the church to repent. But it wasn't she who needed to repent. Joan had been subjected to ungodly things, fled in the night, but was hit by a bus. And while the paper claimed she'd lost her mind, eyewitnesses swore they saw someone chasing her. Terry asks what the group wanted with Joan, to which the nun explains that just before the turn of the century, the leader of their coven claimed to have conjured the devil himself, leaving behind a son and heir who would stop at nothing. Suddenly, Terry feels a sharp pain in her stomach, and seeing this, the nun tells her that they've chosen her. Terrified, the nun prays fervently, warning Terry that if the child is born, God have mercy on all of them. Terry and Annie visit a clinic for an abortion, but as the doctor begins the procedure, Terry suddenly screams and kicks her away. She apologizes to the doctor, but to their horror, the doctor's body starts to stiffen right in front of them. Terry and Annie rush out of the clinic, with Terry blaming herself, saying the pain was too much. Annie insists it wasn't her fault, but Terry confesses that she had fantasized about something terrible happening to Vera, all because she wanted her role. Annie tries to calm her down, saying she couldn't have caused this, but Terry insists it's not her, but it's them. She believes something bigger is at play, and says they did something to Joan, Vera, and Lily, and that Lily was one of them. When Annie expresses fear, Terry says the way the nun looked at her confirms it's too late, and the thing is now a part of her, and she can't escape. Annie suggests they leave and figure it out together, but Terry insists she must face it alone. Terry returns to the Bramford and, while waiting for the elevator, spots Minnie inside, heading down. Curious, she goes to the basement to look for Minnie, but she is nowhere to be found. Terry returns to the elevator, but it suddenly starts going down on its own. When it stops, she steps out and discovers an underslab tunnel. As she moves forward, she realizes it's the place from her dreams. She enters a hidden theater and, going behind a curtain on the stage, finds a table covered with strange, unsettling objects. Terry sees Alan there and asks what this place is, to which he asks if she really doesn't remember. Suddenly, Terry realizes that what she saw in her dreams had actually happened to her here, and Alan tells her there had been many attempts before her, but she is different. Terry accuses Alan of violating her, but he responds that she begged for it. Terry grabs a knife, warning him not to touch her, but Alan keeps approaching, calling her a marvel. He then asks if she wants him to suffer, to which she tearfully says yes, begging him to stay away. Alan taunts her, saying she craves the spotlight, but has always belonged in the dark. Suddenly, Terry stabs him, and when Alan asks if she feels powerful, she pulls the knife out, causing Alan to collapse and die at her feet. Terry suddenly remembers that Roman is the leader of the cult, and it was Satan that made her pregnant. Spotting the Satan, she panics and tries to flee, managing to reach the elevator. However, when she arrives at the first floor, Toby locks the door and advances toward her. Terrified, she rushes to her apartment and locks herself, but realizing that someone is in her house, she grabs a knife from the kitchen. She then confronts Minnie, and just then, Roman also comes there. Terry says she knows what he did to her, to which he calmly suggests she sit down, but Terry pushes back, declaring that she knows about Joan and what he is. Minnie asks, "So what?" To which Terry says so she won't be a part of it. Minnie says that's not how it works, and reminds her how she was when they found her. She was nothing, and they had given her everything. Terry says everything isn't worth this, to which Minnie says they have a deal. Terry points the knife at herself, declaring the deal is over, to which Minnie coldly responds, a little lower. Terry tries to stab herself, but the satanic force stops her, causing her to fall to the floor. Minnie tells her that the baby is here to stay, and when Roman approaches to check on Terry, she screams at him to get away, calling him evil. Roman asks, because he prays to a different god than her? He then recounts how, as a boy, he watched a righteous, God-fearing mob brutally attack his father, beating him to death in front of his eyes, all because his father had harnessed a dark power that mesmerized people. Terry says he is the heir, and Roman confirms, explaining that conjuring the devil was just the beginning, and they needed a human vessel for the devil's son. He reveals that their Lord chose her, and that her son will change the world. He assures her that she is not alone anymore, adding that he can't wait for the world to discover what a treasure she truly is. Terry says she could have made it on her own, to which Minnie says this is the role she was born to play. He then extends his hand toward her, and Terry, though hesitant, takes it and stands up. They bring Terry to their apartment, where the cult members are already gathered, waiting for her, and as she enters, they begin clapping for her. Roman announces, God is dead, and Satan lives, and the group chants in unison, the year is one. Terry looks around and, with a blank expression, says, Hail Satan. As the cult members chant Hail Satan in response, she begins to dance. The group watches, captivated, enjoying her movements. While dancing, Terry moves toward the window, and before anyone can react, she suddenly sits on the ledge and leaps out, crashing onto a car and dying on impact. Roman and Minnie arrive at the scene, unfazed by Terry's death, and without hesitation, they scan the crowd, subtly selecting their next candidate for the role. As they approach a new girl, the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.